Good morning, everyone. Just bear with us a second while people join the session. Right. Well, good morning, everybody. We've got a good number of attendees joined, so I think we will start the session, and people will join us as they're ready. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Make UK webinar in association with Hulft. My name's Tim Figgers and I'm the Director of Technology, Sustainability and Innovation at Make UK. And I'm joined by Jim Davison and Stephen Tulip from our regional membership team in the South, Professor Gianvito Lanzolla from the Cass Business School at City University, London, and Irfan Karahoca from our sponsors, Hulft. And for the next 90 minutes or so, we'll be talking to you about digital transformation, something that is a high priority for us at Make UK, and something which we think is particularly relevant and hopefully interesting to all of you. So I'm going to hand over to Jim now for some introductions. Jim, over to you.
Thank you, Tim. Good morning, everybody. Absolute pleasure to have you today on our webinar. We're going to be talking future technologies and very privileged to be partnering with Hulft and Gianvito this morning even. A couple of housekeeping points. One is we've got all of our guests in muted mode. If you would like to ask a question, and I encourage you to do so, please use the QA box. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a bubble that says Q&A. If you put your questions in there, we'll facilitate a questions and answer session and make sure those are answered. That was all I was going to say, but very pleased to welcome you this morning. And now I'm going to hand back to Tim. Tim, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim. And we should also just say that we are recording this session so that we can share it on YouTube later for the benefit of people who weren't able to join us this morning. So just to let you know that this session will be made public after the event. So thank you very much. And what I just wanted to do now was just share my screen with you, and then we should, there we go. Hopefully everyone can see that. So I wanted to talk to you just briefly about Make UK's Make It Smart campaign, which this event is part of, and which explains why we're focusing so much on technology and innovation at the moment. That's the agenda that we will go through today. So there will be the opportunity after Gianvito has spoken for you to ask questions. You can, as Jim says, put your questions in the Q&A box at any point during the session, and then we will get to it later. So you don't have to wait until the discussion before asking a question. If something occurs to you as we're going along, please type it in the Q&A box. And also, if you see a question somebody else has asked that you like the look of, you can vote and give it a Facebook style thumbs up, and then it will move to the top of the list and we will answer that question as a priority. Now, one of the 4 key campaigns we are doing at Make UK this year is called #MakeItSmart. And this is all about industrial digitalization, what some people call the 4th industrial revolution, other people call Industry 4.0. But ultimately what it's about is how we digitalize our manufacturing base to improve productivity, the quality of products, and also, importantly, resilience. I think something that the COVID pandemic has shown us is quite how fragile some of our supply chains are. And as I'll explain in a minute, technology has got a really important role in helping us overcome those issues and improve the way that we work. And we're doing three key things. First of all, what we've done is a lot of investigation a bit earlier in the year into the support networks and services that are provided to manufacturing SMEs in order to help with industrial digitalisation. Now, in some parts of the country, particularly in the northwest of England, these are quite developed and sophisticated. Elsewhere, there are a number of different people trying their best, but things are perhaps less well developed. So we produced this policy paper that you can see here, and I'll circulate a bit later a link so you can download it, which we published in May with 15 recommendations aimed at industry, government and regional stakeholders as to how our sector can be better supported on its digitalisation journey. Secondly, we're holding a number of best practice events, of which this is one, to try and inspire and inform our members and broader stakeholders. And we're also in the process of updating our evidence base just to see exactly how our industry is doing at the moment. We've just closed a major innovation monitor survey. We're crunching the numbers as we speak, but from a first cut, it looks as though we are making significant progress since 2018, which was the last time we looked at this, but some very significant and quite stubborn and predictable barriers still remain. And I'm sure we will get into talking about those a little bit later on. And just before I pass over to Gianvito, I just wanted to give a little bit of a reflection about what we've learned in working with our members during the COVID-19 crisis. In particular, the contribution that industrial digital technologies have made to improving resilience. So that could, for example, be things like the way additive manufacturing, 3D printing, was used to print critical components for ventilators when traditional supply chains were disrupted. It could be the way people who'd moved their back offices and their systems to the cloud were able to keep on working and keep their sales and marketing and regulatory departments and HR departments functioning, even though they couldn't go into their factories. And also increasingly, as we now move to come back to work in a COVID-19 secure way, technology also helps that way, as robots, for example, don't need to socially distance. We're seeing quite a lot of our members looking at technologies such as robotics to help them get back to full production in a way that protects the health and safety of their staff and their workers. So I hope that is a useful backdrop about what we're doing at Make UK, what we think we've learned over the last 3 or 4 months, and how this event, which I'm really, really grateful to Hulft for supporting, fits into our overall programme. So I'm going to stop my presentation there, and it gives me great pleasure to pass over to Professor Gianvito Lanzolla from City University Cass Business School. Gianvito, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. It's my pleasure being here today. So I will be discussing, as asked by Hulft and Make UK, my views on digital transformation and more specifically resilience in the digital age. So just give me 1 second to share my screen. And I'll be right back. Okay, so as kindly said by the host of this session, I'm Gianvito Lanzolla, professor at Cass Business School, City University of London. You find my contact details here. The goal of today is, I'm going to go very quickly into the agenda. I'm going to try to give you my view of what is digital transformation and why we should care. I mean, I know that we are all aware, but I'm going to also add my 2 cents. And then what are my views on what should manufacturers do to build resilience in the digital age. And then, I mean, we will, I hope that through this brief presentation, I mean, this is much, there is a summary of a lot of work going on in the background. You may be able to understand whether you are ready and what roadmap you may want to put in place to move to the next stage into digital transformation and resilience in the digital age. Now, when we speak about the digital transformation, the fourth industrial revolution or industry 4.0, whatever, however you want to call it, often we equate it. There is a very simple equation that many people make in their minds. Digital technology diffusion equal data and the digital engines for companies. Now, that's true. And then, I mean, we have all seen that through digital technology diffusion, we have the physical world becoming more and more digital to the processes of convergence, smartification, and to the processes of virtualization. That's absolutely important, and digitization and connectivity are the technologies that enable this transformation. I mean, you clearly can understand already here that there is a lot when you smartify a pair of shoes, or when you want to virtualize the training in your oil and gas operations, or wherever you are, there is a significant change vis-a-vis the old world where everything was physical. And we have already seen that the bedrock of the fourth industrial revolution is the blending of the digital and the physical. And to put things into context, I mean, to make it even more, let's say, concrete and we can touch it. So blending of physical and digital means that by 2030, 80%, I mean, these are all estimates, so nobody has a crystal ball. But anyway, just to have a rough understanding of where we are heading, 80% of the world population will be fully connected. So you can basically understand what it means, that instantaneously you can connect with everyone just few years down the line. Plus 50 billion connected devices. 50 billion connected devices. It means that if the world population will reach 8.5 billion, there will be something like 7-8 connected devices per person on our Earth, or trillions of sensors. I mean, this is something that it already now sounds quite big. Now, digitization and connectivity drive the blending of physical and digital, and that's the bedrock. Any manufacturer that wishes to move into and lead in Industry 4.0 or the fourth industrial revolution, connectivity, digitization, blending physical and digital is the point number one, which of course there is a lot of technology that has to be put over there. And just to give some let's say, figurative images, people will become just physical and a series of numbers, a series of 0 and 1, or our trains, there will be trains, and there will be what some people call digital twin, which is a way, it's a collection of technologies to recreate virtually the operations that go on the rail track. Now that's just the beginning, because once you connect and digitize everything, this creates an incredible quantity of data. Now, 35 zettabytes of data. I quite frankly don't know exactly what it means. It just means so many zeros that at least I cannot conceive. So there will be an incredible amount of data that will be created by digitization and connectivity. Now, I'm sure, very familiar with images like this. Clearly, some companies are better positioned than other ones in making the most of data, okay? And I don't think I have to mention any examples. They are fairly self-evident. Now, if digitization and connectivity creates a zettabyte of data, so this ocean of data, this is often called the new oil. But you know very well that oil without an engine doesn't get any traction. So if we want to keep the metaphor forward, if we want to push this metaphor forward, if data is the new oil, what is going to be the new engines? So you can, in the old economy, there were places that were successful, such as let's say Saudi Arabia, or because they had oil. Other that they became very successful, such as the UK or the US, because they could create the engines that exploited the oil. Now, what is going to be the new engines in the digital era? We have all heard about cloud, artificial intelligence, blockchain, and that's just the beginning. We are all familiar with cloud, blockchain, artificial intelligence, but going forward, the roadmap is already pretty clear. Quantum computing, or just we are already ready for this, 5G. So there's a lot of technology that will act as an engine on this data that will be created by digitization and connectivity. Now, if you have followed me so far, so digital technology diffusion creates this, if you want, this equation. So connectivity, digitization, data, artificial intelligence, cloud, distributed ledgers, which someone calls blockchain is a specific distributed ledger, and many more technologies to come. Some people think that this is the equation that drives digital transformation. Now, this is incredibly important, but this is just one part of the equation. Because, digital technology diffusion not only changes the bedrocks of our companies, digital technologies change significantly also the external environment. And this is, the first, let's say, point that I wanted to share with you. Thinking that digital technology is about, digital transformation is about technology might be slightly misleading, might be even perhaps erroneous. Because, just to throw here one of the zillions examples that I can share with you, if you think that technology is the only thing, the only game in town, now you may end up doing something like this. BNP Paribas in London, in London offices, throwing something 3 billion on technology, and then say, okay, that's it. We put the technology, things will happen. Then the leadership team switch off, and what does it happen? What it happens that technology in search of problems. So this is, one clear takeaway, one clear emergent regularity. There is a massive bedrock of technology that companies has to grapple with to enter into the digital age, but technology per se doesn't bring you there. If you just think that is about technology, you will end up having technology in search of problems, which very, very soon will create even some resistance, big resistance in terms of moving to the next stage in digital transformation and leading in the digital age. The point that I want to make here is that you need really not only to think about technology, but what is changing in your external environment because of digital technology diffusion. Your clients, okay? And by the way, I'm just focusing here on some direct impacts of digital technologies, okay? Just direct ones. So if you think about your clients will all have to grapple with this big trade-off between privacy and customization. Digital technologies, on the one hand, promise customization. On the other hand, they have, and they might intrude into your privacy. This can be, I know that on the other side of the screen, there are both B2C and B2B companies. It doesn't matter. Privacy in a B2B context, it's called trade secrets, or it's called your own IP, intellectual property. And see, in this trade-off, in this big trade-off, a company like GE, which we cannot really claim is a small company, came out with this system called Predix. And Predix, it has been sorry, I'm going to be a little bit blunt here, and it has not gone as well as they thought. Okay, I have made it slightly more, slightly softer, not because they didn't invest in technology, but because they didn't fully understand that without building trust with the stakeholders that had to share data, predicts cannot work. So this is a significant investment that Jeff Immelt made before, let's say, leaving to the next CEO, and it has gone nowhere, really nowhere, and they're even thinking about spinning off this division from GE because of privacy issues, because in the case of B2B, companies didn't want to share with GE their own IP, their own data. So this is not just something philosophical, it's very concrete, billions gone to the drain. What are the other trade-off for your clients? Choices versus curation. Digital technologies creates the potential for choice. But who has been more successful? Yahoo, whereby you get lost, spoiled for choices or lost for choices, or Google, which gives you one curated choice. Just type your question, I will give you some answers. So this is a significant change, a paradox even, created by digital technology. Choices, spoiled for choices. The most successful is a company that gives you only one choice, just only one search box. Just try to systematize these trade-offs for you to perhaps even challenge some of your assumptions that there is no linear change created by digital technology. It's actually very ambiguous and non-linear. And that's just the first two. What about the changes created by cloud computing, access versus ownership? Many companies get paralyzed. Why should I lose control of what I have always built inside the company? It has always been in my balance sheet. Now I want to make it as an OPEX. It becomes something that I buy. So you really need to go deep in understanding your clients' challenges first, and second, specifically how would position themselves in the spectrum shaped by these trade-offs. But this is just the first question. So do you still know your clients in the digital age? And by the way, I'm focusing only on changes directly created and triggered by digital technologies, because there are other trends, but this is just for digital technologies. Now, what about competition? Many of us still think that we are competing against our usual suspects. This is another very, let's say, revealing metaphor. Are we still competing with our next door client or against Google? I will also share in the end a very quick case study to make it even more relevant. So where does competition come from? That's something that we are used, that we know very well from cognitive psychology, that we tend to think what it has always been familiar to us. So we compete against that company, that German company, that American company. What about if competition comes from a completely different side, whereby, for example, Google or Apple enter into our or Amazon, even more, enter into our space? So do we still know whom we are competing against? Geopolitics. I mean, this is something very, very relevant, very contemporary. I mean, all our manufacturing companies might be significantly squeezed or even trapped into this geopolitical war, which is basically now based on technology. Who is going to be the owner of the platforms, or the technological platforms that allow the world, or the part of the world that the US and China wants to control, to communicate, to digitize, to digitally transform? That's a significant transformation that we need to grapple with. Think about not only your markets, also your supply chain. If you get trapped into some retaliation between US and China, and you all know exactly what I'm referring to, supply chain can be disrupted. Markets can just being foreclosed without us even having, not because our business was not doing well, but because we get trapped into a geopolitical war just for controlling technology on Earth. And if you want, perhaps the most subtle challenge that we have is the one about regulation. I mean, regulation at the moment, it's really an empty book. Pages are blank. And there is, my research shows that there is a significant, even at the board level, actually perhaps even more at the board level, there is a significant misunderstanding. Many companies are, if you want, confusing compliance with legitimacy. So since there is still a relatively large regulatory vacuum, many companies think that whatever the activities that are compliant, okay, that tick the box of compliance, are okay. Now, the reality is that in this period of significant change, as I have discussed with you a few minutes ago, we can be compliant, so we can tick the boxes, but we may lose legitimacy if we do something that, even if it's compliant, even if it's business efficient, doesn't factor in changes in regulation or changes in client and consumer preferences. And this is, I know, this is not an exercise of crystal balling. This is an exercise of judgment that leadership teams and boards have to constantly go through, because otherwise we can be compliant and not legitimate. If we lose legitimacy, it doesn't matter that we were compliant, we lose the business. Now, a company that is really trying hard to lose legitimacy, in my view, is Facebook. They are really, I mean, Zuckerberg is significantly trying to lose legitimacy vis-a-vis clients and regulator. If I had time, I would show you some videos or many other examples. They call it the apology tour. Zuckerberg has already been asked to speak in front of senior commissions of the US Congress, senior commission committees, because of misbehaviors of his company. Now, even if Facebook so far is compliant, but is building so much, in my view, is little by little losing legitimacy. So what does it happen when you lose legitimacy? And Facebook is only one. I mean, this is quickly the data from the Economist. Have a look how many matters, tax and legal matters Facebook has with, okay, this is EU based, with around more than 13 matters open as 2019. That's quite a significant number. Sooner or later, the regulator can say, okay, enough, and then you lose legitimacy, and then you use your business. So are you leaving compliance drive your business instead of exerting your judgment of what will be legitimate going forward? So the first point that I wanted to make today is that this industry 4.0, fourth industrial revolution, however you want to call it, it's technology enabled, but actually it's very much multi-level change. It goes way beyond data and artificial intelligence, which I call the digital engines, triggers significant changes in the external environment, in clients, in competition, in regulation, even in geopolitics, in geopolitical framework, which requires a significant rethinking of your strategy. Now, think this is just one specific part. Then that is a bang, a massive bang, the massive bang that Make UK is trying to let's say, to embed even more in the manufacturing platform of the UK. But there are even more. There is a, and by the way, this bang, as we said, is so big that Some people call it the fourth industrial revolution, especially in the UK. It's mostly called fourth industrial revolution. In other parts, it's called Industry 4.0. So why the fourth industrial revolution? The first one was steam. I mean, it's self-explanatory, then electricity, then electronics, and now digital. So the ambition is that as the first industrial revolution was born in the UK, even the fourth one will find very fertile ground in the UK. So that's our ambition going forward. Now, this is just, just one part, because then you need to add the other trends. Now, we have a little, in this period of COVID-19, we have parked quite a bit the other big emergency. Now, I don't want to make a political point. I mean, climate change, there is evidence that it's going to be the big thing going forward. Now, some people charge it politically, but from a business professor perspective, climate change seems to, building on the evidence that we collect, is another big change that has to be considered for our resilience. So it's not only the left-hand side of the screen, not only the digital engines, the data, and the changes in the macro environment. Is the new normal after COVID-19? Is the climate change? It's a bang with a bang. It's a double bang. Now, when there is double bang, some people, and me included many times, I mean, we may like to stick our head into the sand. Because it's tough, it's painful. I mean, here superheroes are in cartoons for kids, not in the reality. But the assumption that we have been making over time on value creation and value capturing, are they resilient to this double bang? This is the big question that I believe leadership teams and the leadership teams I work with constantly ask and constantly probe. And boards and leadership team, it has to be a constant, let's say, discussion between this senior level in the organization. Because some of the value creation assumption and value capturing assumption that we have made may not be strong enough, may not be resilient to this double bang. Now, I'm going to show you very quickly this slide, not because I want to make any story, a presentation about history, but because I want to make a point very shortly. So on the horizontal axis here, you see time, okay? From the beginning of known human history, let's say 8,000 before Christ, to our days. And on the vertical axis, you can see an index, human social development index, okay? Both on the left and on the right, millions of people. Now, if you look at the human social development index, for the vast majority of time, for thousands of years, it was a very flat, smooth line, very flat, very smooth. Today, you could picture what might have happened by building on yesterday. But see what happens around this dotted line, just what year is identified by what steam engine introduced in 1775. The very smooth linear development takes a massive abrupt change. It becomes, there is what we call an inflection point. Now, when there is an inflection point, see, if you want to predict today or tomorrow based on yesterday, you are completely off, because yesterday you were going at this very smooth pace. Now it becomes almost vertical. Why I'm showing this? And I can show you other zillions of graphs. So this is about the labor force occupation, occupational class in the UK. I think these are data about the UK. So for many years, in percentage, people were, LWS is a service class for many centuries, for many years, and even centuries. It was basically an irrelevant part of our communities. And then there is an inflection point, and LWS becomes the most relevant part in many economies. So think about manufacturing that look like it was, and this is very relevant for us. Remember, these are data in relative terms. So manufacturing looked like it was the only game in town until the, let's say this year, I don't want to This is around 1980s, something like that, whereby manufacturing started first to plateau and even a little bit declining. Now, these are actually data for the overall world. These are data for the UK. It's exactly the same. You can see that you can see the three different colors, and then service becoming more and more prevailing, manufacturing after peaking in let's say around 70s, becoming a smaller part. What I want to make here, I don't want to speak about history. What I want to discuss here is that when there are banks, when there are even double banks, there are inflection points. So when there are inflection points, making predictions is incredibly difficult. There is a very famous interview that the BBC did with David Bowie in 1999 about the future of internet. When you will get the slides, you can click on this slide and there is the link of this interview, and you will see the BBC presenter being very skeptical about asking David Bowie, but I mean, what is this internet? 1999. What is internet? It's nothing, just another distribution channel. It's another channel to distribute content. And David Bowie is calling, no, that is going to be an alien form. Now, 1999, nobody could see this. I mean, even the BBC, I'm making this example not to criticize, because it's very easy to criticize ex post, but just to say that, I mean, the common wisdom in 1999 was the internet was just another channel to distribute information. David Bowie keeping Pacman saying, no, it's not. It is an alien form. Okay, and you could see the presenter making fun of David Bowie. Changes happens anyway. We have a double bang. We cannot escape it. Now let's be proud of our history. And as Winston Churchill was saying, if we don't take change by hand, it will take us by the throat. So it's our choice how we want to deal with this. Now, so far it might even sound or feel that it's a little bit, let's say, daunting, scary, but the opportunity is huge. These are data from the world, for the World Bank. The value created by digital technologies in the US, in the UK, in China, wherever it is our market, just the value created by, in terms of efficiency or in terms of new products, is in the regions of trillions in the UK, in the US, in China, wherever it is our market. The opportunity is huge. And we want to take a slice of this opportunity. So how do we take a slice of this opportunity? Now, what I will show with you, what I will discuss with you in the next few minutes is an evolutionary approach towards digital transformation. So many companies, as I told you at the beginning, think that digital transformation is about adoption of technology. And some other companies feel that is about, and look, in this graph, there is on the bottom, data plus digital engines, then on the upper side, external changes. And then, I mean, in between, what are the typical strategies that companies that go through digital transformation tend to adopt? So at the very beginning, there's digitization per se, whereby companies start with marketing and sales, customer engagement, operations, work practice. But see, very much this strategy are based on data and digital engines. The only feedback, the only input in the strategy is technology. Even when some companies move forward and go in digital innovation, which is more evolutionary, still many companies don't consider the changes in the external environment. What happens on the contrary is that companies that really go through the full transformation, so they do adaptation, which is our goal, are ones that consider both the external changes and the internal ones. And to fully appreciate strategy in the digital age, I'll make the point here, and I will come back to this, that companies have to grapple with this value creation and value capturing trade-off. Value from connecting the dots, so becoming a platform, versus value from making the dots, remaining or being a manufacturer, okay? So there is a significant change from adopting to adapting to the digital age, okay? Now, very quickly, let me show you some example. So this is the initial stage. And as I told you, adaptation is very much about using digital technology for two things, which is basically complement what you already do and replace what you already do. Very much when companies that go through digitization as adoption, what they do is, this is my activity system, that's what I do. You use technology to complement, to even augment, or to replace what you do. But that's okay, but it's very much as is. Now, digital technologies also enable not only to complement and to replace, but also to do things differently, this third dimension of the axis. Companies that understand that you can also do things differently, okay, are the companies that start entering into digital innovation. So digital innovation means that the activity that you were doing with before is not just replaced or complemented, it's just done differently, okay, completely different. For example, in the pharma industry, before pharma discovery was based on clinical trials, what does it mean to do it differently? For example, to use big data, okay? There's nothing to bear. There's no legacy in big data and artificial intelligence for drugs discovery. It's a different way of doing things. Now, this is something that requires a lot of imagination, a lot of also capital, both intellectual and financial, but this is what we call digital innovation. Then the next step is adaptation. Now, I'm going to start with a very famous quote. There is a lot of hype that in the digital age things will disappear. Now, people in the digital age, things will transform. It's not that we will not need banking. It's not that we will not need transportation. To make an example closer to many of the people on the other side of the screen. We will still need transportation. We will still need banking, but will we need banks? Will we need car manufacturer? I mean, it's today news that Tesla is worth a handful of the big traditional car manufacturers. Tesla, a loss-making company that produces relatively few cars vis-a-vis the large manufacturer producing millions of cars. Tesla is worth 3-4 times, can buy most of them. Okay, so the big question is not a science fiction, whether transportation will disappear, whether banking will disappear, whether entertainment will disappear. No, the question is, will we need car manufacturers as we know them? Will we need banks as we know them? And this is the final point, and whereby to understand what position we want to take here, we really need to think about, so do we want to, once we join this digital ecosystem, okay, do we want to create value by being a platform that connects the dots, or do we want to make the dots? So let me give you some examples, okay? We all know Apple as a manufacturer of sleek, stylish, lifestyle handsets, okay? Now, once Apple connect this device, okay, with our heart, with our lifestyle, Apple can move beyond being a lifestyle, sleek producer of a handset to become health company. The value of health of Tim Cook, what Tim Cook is pushing is becoming an health company. And I mean, this is not me making up stories. It's Apple's greatest contribution to mankind will be health, not producing stylish and desirable handset. Or, and that's just to illustrate even more. So many people will make the dots. I mean, Apple will need the heart rate sensor. They will need the respiration rate sensor. So many of these, maybe will be you doing some of this stuff, okay? But what value will you create? So you will make the dots. Apple will connect the dots and will tap into a market of trillions of dollars. So there is no right or wrong. I'm just explaining the mechanism. You decide which game you want to play. But really, it's about connecting versus making. And you can play also multiple strategy, but just to make it simple, I've started in a very simple way. Or we know John Deere as a producer of harvesters or any other, let's say, machinery. John Deere is moving into farm forward. They are partnering with the UK Met Office to do what? I mean, because people that are familiar with agriculture know that the big problem is the weather. So it doesn't matter that you have a fantastic harvester if you don't harvest at the right time. So if you manage also to get information on when to harvest and where to harvest, that has a massive impact on your productivity. So what is John Deere selling? I mean, of course, it's selling this beautiful piece of machinery, and nobody's discussing it, but it's also selling a farm forward approach, whereby it's a full service given to the manufacturer, to the farmer. These things don't come easy, don't come cheap, and there are a lot of hiccups, but I'm trying to explain what it means to connect the dots. Or when you connect the dots for companies on the other side that are more in the luxury or field, so many manufacture of creams or sun screens or skin creams, they may be significantly disrupted by companies such as Romi, whereby this company is by connecting our lifestyle. So they collect information of what I have eaten today, how much I have worked today, what is the weather, whether it's dry or wet. And based on this, they are able to identify your daily dosage for your skincare, okay? Now, I have worked with several of these companies, of the legacy companies, I don't want to make names now, which are very, very worried that if this happens, the Lancome cream that you buy mostly because it makes you, I mean, also because it makes you feel good. If someone comes to the market and say, that's not a feel-good cream, this is actually something that works for you today, that's a significant transformation. And I mean, more and more and more. This is a very interesting example. It's not really manufacturing, but allow me to do it because you will have to take a space into this space, into this. This is ING, a famous bank. And I mean, you will not ever understand that, I mean, this is a bank if you read this statement. So what ING wants to be is empowering people to stay a step ahead in life and business. So what is the ambition of ING? I have worked with the CEO of ING, so I know as a matter of fact what's going on here. So their ambition is to partner with the producers of locksmith, with producers of, with your gym, whatever. Not only, they will not only sell you a mortgage, a loan. Their ambition is, by knowing so much about us, their ambition is, so by connecting everything, is to put us a step ahead in life and in business. Okay, To put it in a more graphical way, a typical company that is pushing this connecting the dot strategy to the next level is Amazon, that is connecting a lot of dots. And here you see what are the dots that are connecting, and they are also trying to own many of them. Now we'll see when the regulator will get upset, at what level, but assuming that things keep going. So this is a typical representation of what we could call an ecosystem. So what would you like to do? Is it adoption? Is it evolution? Is it adaptation? Are you still resilient vis-a-vis these changes? Now I'm going to make a very quick example. Think about you are John PLC producing this locksmith, okay? It's not that I mean locksmith, locks, sorry, not locksmith, apologies, locks. So you produce this lock. It's not that I mean locks will disappear, okay? You can still be an SME producing locks. I mean, the market will be there. I mean, we need to close our doors, okay? But when you start connecting your door, your lock with shops, with the police, with insurance, with family, with the pets, with our GP, with our delivery guy, with the cleaner, I mean, this becomes not any longer a lock, which look like, I mean, a relatively, let's say, stable, low growth market. Once you connect it, this becomes something different. It becomes access to your, I mean, to a massive array of services. So you can keep producing your own locks, or you can become, by connecting, maybe you become the producer of, I mean, just selling a service, the service of delivering to your house, of allowing cleaners to come to your house, or letting the pet out when the pet has to go out for whatever reason. So see the example that I was making you before. Does the John PLC lock producer still compete against other lock producers? The most interested company in locks is Amazon. Maybe you already know, but I mean, for many people, this is a surprise. So why Amazon is interested in locks? And they have launched Key, even if it's still in experimental phase, because they want to take it easy before the people react too much. Why? Because once they control your lock, they control all these markets. So the situation is changing rapidly. It's not that we will not need security for our door. We will still need banking. We will need access to our house, to our homes. We will still need transportation. But what's going to be the business that will deliver on this need? Okay, and that's really what it means, adaptation. Asking yourself the question: the way in which we create value in this changing world, in this changed world, the way in which we capture value, which basically means what is special, unique about us. Is it resilient? Is it strong enough? Or the market has moved on? Okay. Now, in all this, technology, which has created this bang, can also be of help, okay, of significant help. That's one of my latest research outcomes. I've been studying how technology can help significantly you in finding your own position in this transformed world. So moving from adoption to adaptation. And then what are the points here is that, yeah, we all deal with data and AI. So that's the beginning of the two axes. But then the vertical axis is we shouldn't use data and AI for patterns discovery to reinvent legacy value chain and overcome legacy trade-offs. We should use data and AI for automation and achieve personalization at scale. And in this funnel, what I show is what are the takeaway that we have discovered from companies that have done it well, that have used technology to build a more resilient position in the digital world. So very quickly before I come to a conclusion, they build trust with stakeholders about the use of their data. They fuse AI capabilities and subject matter expertise. That's a big mistake that we see. Many companies think that they have to replace completely their engineers. By the way, I'm a mechanical engineer. My master is in mechanical engineering. So I feel very touchy when they say, oh, it's all about computer science. No, I mean, people, they must know thermodynamics. I mean, you cannot reinvent the wheel. So it's about fusing AI capabilities with subject matter expertise. It's not about replacing. And of course, it is about leveraging the ecosystem to implement your strategy. Because if you learn how to manage the ecosystem to implement your strategy, you also de-risk significantly the way in which you, I mean, the risk and the risk, both market risk and financial risk, the way in which you deliver on your strategy, you implement your strategy. So I've taken perhaps a few more minutes than I was kindly offered. The question for you is now, are you ready? And see, if we were together in I mean, this meeting was supposed to happen face to face, so I wanted to keep this this slide, not because it's almost lunchtime, but because I say, okay, now we can celebrate the way we can celebrate together that we have gone through this presentation together. I mean, I hope I've given you some hints. Now, the point that I want to make you is that all of us have been thinking that cakes are round. I mean, I particularly like with strawberries and chocolate. So we all have in our minds some frames about the way in which the world works, our business works. The point that I want to make now with you before saying goodbye is that the most difficult part of leading digital transformation and becoming resilient will be deframe our mindset. Deframe our mindset that cakes are round, that competition comes from John PLC, that clients want X, Y, Z, that these are enemies, these are friends. Deframing our own mindset will be perhaps the most difficult part to equip ourselves for the digital transformation and for resilience. Because if we keep thinking in the old way, we risk to be framed. And within this frame, we will miss the forest for the trees. So as we know, keep calm and reinvent yourself. The goal, unfortunately, is not that we even lead the digital transformation. Digital is becoming very quickly transparent background. The world that we are facing is in constant transformation. So really it's about leading the transformation, and long live the digital transformation, the digital revolution. So the point that I made with you today, now that I'm coming to the conclusion, is that the digital transformation is about technology, but the technology is just the enabler. It's more about multi-level change. What should manufacturers do? I mean, you can start with digitization. Digitization will give you mostly efficiency, and it's very short-lived because it's very easy to copy you. That's the reason. Digital innovation will help you to move a little bit faster, so doing things differently, but really is about adaptation. So adaptation to the new environment, so which is what we call digital transformation. The question is, are you going to be a maker or a connector? Now, nothing is black and white. I mean, everything is about shades, but I mean, in these few minutes that I had, I wanted to make the points like it was just a binary decision. It's never that binary. You can do multiple things, but at the extreme is making versus connecting. What should you do? That's exactly your strategy, and are you ready for this transformation? Thank you for your patience, and also for, I clearly went a little bit beyond my allocated time, and now the stage is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gianvito. Thank you for that. Now we've got a little bit of time for questions. Just a reminder, because there are a lot of people on the session, that it isn't possible for you all to speak, but you can put your questions in the Q&A box. Just before we do that, I mean, I think that's been an absolutely fascinating kind of overview and sort of motivation from, from Gianvito's perspective of what's going on and why we need to make this change. I appreciate that this can seem pretty daunting and pretty challenging. And one of the things that we're very clear about at Make UK is that the manufacturing sector, and particularly manufacturing SMEs, need and deserve help and support through this process. And we'll come on in a minute to how that works and what might be available. But my key message to you is, while you're grappling with these really, really huge revolutionary changes that Gianvito's been talking about, you aren't on your own. That's what people like Make UK or trade associations are there to do, and a range of other bodies. So just before we go into the discussion, we would just have a few questions that we'd be very interested in your thoughts on, and so hopefully you'll be able to see those on your screen now. And so if you wanted to very quickly vote on our questions. Firstly, a motivational question, kind of what are the reasons why you think you should embrace the digital transformation of manufacturing? And you can select as many of those as apply. I should say, by the way, it's an anonymous poll, so if you tick "it's all hype," it won't make much difference in that first question. We won't know who you are. So if that is what you feel, please be free to say it. Secondly, just thinking about where you are in relation to your competitors. How advanced are you on in adopting these key technologies such as artificial intelligence, the big data and analytics that go with that? Hulft in particular can help you with things like robotics and process automation. Are you better, about the same, or not as advanced as your competitors? Is a senior individual in your organization responsible for digital initiatives? Be interesting to know that. Whenever we do surveys, and it came up again in our innovation monitor that we just closed, data compatibility between systems comes up as a very significant barrier. And again, that's something Hulft can help you with. So is that an issue for you? Finally, what systems does your organization use in particular? How do you do with ERP? And how much would you say is a legacy system or a modern application? So if you haven't voted, could you just vote now, please? And then I'll close the poll, and we will share the results, which hopefully will be interesting as part of the discussion. I'm also glad to see some questions are starting to come into the Q&A box. So please do keep those coming in, and we'll have the opportunity just to answer a few of those. Right, so I'm going to end the polling now. Thank you very much for voting. And here we go. I'm now sharing the results. So if you've got any thoughts or questions on all of this, then please do raise them in the Q&A session. Really good to see. Good. I'm glad no one thinks that it won't make much difference. I guess if you didn't think that, you probably wouldn't have spent an hour and a half of your time joining a session about it. So that's good news. Pleased to see a focus on productivity and cutting costs. That's certainly a major motivation that we see in our surveys, but also about long-term strategic transformation, because that is the only way you will get the full benefit from the investments that you'd need to make. Okay, about 2/3 of you feel that you are less well advanced than your competitors. I guess that's a situation that you'll be thinking about how you could address. Just over half of you say that a senior individual is responsible for digital initiatives in your company. I'm not surprised to see that we can see data silos being an issue, and that's the information about how many systems does your organization currently use. Great. Okay, I'm just going to minimize that, and Stephen, I think, will indicate that he's got that. Great. Okay, so we have got 3 questions so far, actually 4. Please do keep them coming. And the first one I'm going to ask you, Gianvito, to respond to, perhaps as quickly as you can, because we've probably only got about 10 minutes to go through these. From Vicky Matthews, which says, very interesting, what is it that scares you most at the moment?
These markets tend to create monopolies. So the big tech is the big scare. They not naturally go into monopolies because when you build scale, you build efficiencies that create some advantages for broader advantages. And by the way, also in Silicon Valley, many people have used it as a philosophical approach. They say, monopolies are good. So there is which is not, the common wisdom in other parts of the world. So the short answer is that big tech will take a significant part of our economy, which is already being, you can see clearly, even in the valuation in the stock markets.
Yeah, I can sort of see that, and that they are increasingly becoming the monopolists, particularly someone like Amazon. And you showed very clearly, didn't you, how they have done that and getting themselves into pretty much every area of our lives. I'll come back to you in a minute. I will take the question from Fiona about broadband speed. Look, it's something you'll see Make UK as an organisation campaigning on. We're aware that for a sector like manufacturing, where we've got members spread all over the country, including often in rural locations or small towns, the UK's relatively poor broadband infrastructure is a constraining factor in those places. It is getting better. I'm not going to comment on the kind of security or political factors behind the recent decision to remove Huawei from our 5G networks. But obviously, if that does slow down the speed of rollout, particularly of 5G, then that is going to be a problem. And Gianvito showed you a graph which shows why 5G is really, really important, particularly for connected factories in the industrial Internet of Things. That said, progress is being made. In many parts of the UK, things are getting better. So I think what we need to do is do the best we can with the infrastructure we have, and in most of our cities now, that is being sorted out. So I'm just going to ask. So Gianvito, again, perhaps I can take this question. Based on your experience, what do you think is the biggest challenge for manufacturers in planning and executing this transformation?
I've done several cases, is the clash at the culture level, because anyway, you will need to build within your organization more computer science, more artificial intelligence capabilities. Whether you own them or you acquire them, anyway, this is something that is alien to many manufacturers. As I said, I'm a mechanical engineer. So when I studied mechanical engineering, we didn't get along with people studying informatics and computer science. We were almost anthropologically different. So we were studying about thermodynamics, things that move, these kind of things. They were almost scientists. So even anthropologically, there are differences, okay, between engineers that do mechanics and they do informatics. So, but you will need to bring into your organization these capabilities, and then that's normal. The mechanical engineers like me, they will feel threatened. And we have seen in all cases that I've studied, that there are dozens studied and consulted and worked with, this brings the organization to a paralysis and nothing happens. So it requires a massive leadership in creating a narrative that, first of all, understanding how to do the onboarding and creating a narrative of cooperation versus replacement. I mean, in some cases, unfortunately, there will be also some replacement. That's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but that's what it is. I mean, if you look at in the car industry, okay? In the car industry, estimations says that in the next 5-10 years, again, it's a little bit of crystal balling, but take me with a pinch of salt, 50 to 60% of a car, of the value of a car, will be in digital devices. While in 50 years ago was 5%. I mean, I have very precise data I can show you if you are offline. If you want, just email me. So 50 to 60% now is digital. Before was 5. Clearly, things have changed, okay? So the short answer to your question is, besides strategy, which is difficult, is that the implementation is creating the synergies between subject matter expertise. I mean, I show you in the end the roadmap to digital transformation. So creating synergies between subject matter expert and AI and computer science. I did a case with the UK Met Office. I know very well the Seva CXO in the company. And even so, the Met Office, which before was hiring PhD in physics, at a certain point they started hiring more and more computer scientists. This created quite a bit of, not havoc, but I mean, of tension, which didn't bring the hope, the results. And now they are rebalancing. So don't go too far in firing engineers, but also be bold in understanding that digital devices, the digital world will be the new engine of your organization. So you will need to build these capabilities. Culturally, you will be different. That's fine. That's to be understood.
Thank you. And perhaps one last question, a really, really important one from Bipin Patel. How will technology have an impact on diversity? Is that something you've looked at in your research and your work, Gianvito? Really, really important point.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I didn't have time today. I'm studying exactly this question, the question of diversity. I'm studying some companies that have been using technology to scale fast, because that's one of the hopes and of the promises. So you can use technology to scale fast, okay? And I'm looking at how the use of technology to create culture changes the organization, okay? Now, I have a paper with some very nice, I mean, I hope very nice, but very fact-based, showing what's happening. I mean, there are a lot of trade-off, a lot of tension, but in a nutshell, if you use technology, beside the obvious things of biases, which we start to understand, which are terrible, because I mean, there's a lot of biases that get incorporated into technology. And then if you want to hire someone with glasses, you will always hire someone. I mean, if I mean, I'm making a very silly example, but if it's somewhere in your black box of the technologies, people with the glasses look more appropriate for your organization, you will end up always hiring people with glasses, not because maybe they are the best ones, but because I mean, somewhere the pattern that has been incorporated in your AI figure out, I mean, that's the case. Now, this is a very silly, cheap example. There's much worse things here. I mean, in terms of EDI, equality, diversity, inclusion, there are very serious things, even that may go against the 2010 law in the UK. But I mean, coming back to the point, to say something slightly different, it will create more face value uniformity. The more you use technology, specific, for example, enterprise social media to communicate, and we will see also after this pandemic with all this use of technology. So what we see is that people, they very quickly understand because of more transparency, because of more immediacy, what we see is that company immediately understand what are the winning behaviors, okay? So they immediately adapt to the winning behaviors. And so in terms, for example, values, you think that you have built a culture which is one make UK culture, okay, very quickly using technology. But what we are seeing is that, I mean, emotionally, there is a disconnect between the cognitive level, which is basically what team likes. So I'm going to do exactly what team likes because, I mean, I'm going to be a winner. And emotionally, what actually I really feel, I don't care, and I disconnect. And we have a significant evidence that, I mean, the more you use technology, the more you get phase. I mean, again, there are a lot of moderators, I mean, but there is something happening here. Face value adherence to values rather than emotional, which is in itself a risk for your resilience, because, you know, when you ask people to go beyond the call of duty, you need to also speak to their heart, not only to their brain and to their pockets. So it's a significant problem that we are discovering, and I'm very happy to share the evidence, the results, I mean, of this in-depth studies that I'm doing. So the bottom line, diversity is challenged.
Thank you very much. It's an important point, and look, we should have a separate session just on that particular issue. In fact, I will make a note of that for our future program at Make UK. So just to conclude our session, apologies if we didn't get to answering your questions. I'd like to hand over to Irfan Karahoca from Hulft, who will explain a little bit about things from his perspective, and also maybe wrap up some of the points that have been made during the course of the discussion. Irfan, over to you.
Sorry, Tim. Thank you, Tim. Thank you very much. Sorry, I was on mute. Gianvito, thank you very much for the enlightening discussion. And also thank you to everyone for joining us this morning. As Tim said, my name is Irfan. I'm part of the Hulft EMEA team with our headquarters based in Tokyo. Now, many of you may not know about Hulft, and that's because we're quite new into this part of the world. The key, sorry, my slides. Can everybody see my slides? Yes, perfect. So part of the discussion we've had, the way we see it is that, you know, data is the beginning of everything there, and our belief is that data should work for you and not the other way around. It's the lifeblood of your business, and it should be enabled to flow where it is needed, when it is needed. Obviously, as Gianvito touched, there are a number of things that hinder true digital transformation. You've got any business that's been around for, you know, that has a long history, will have legacy systems. You have acquisitions that will bring in disparate systems into the business environment. There's also the cultural dimension that we touched on, or Gianvito touched on, where you have, you know, many applications are written for a particular group within the company. These applications, obviously, that they're optimized to serve those needs, and you've got people culturally have been focused on their own without sort of the need to share, and you also have things that are sort of a misalignment between IT departments and line of business. So you've got those kind of factors that slow transformation. So how do you go about it? Well, first of all, again, as Gianvito mentioned earlier, transformation has lots of different stages. It's a journey and not an event or a sprint. So according to Gartner, you've got the top two sort of roadblocks are culture and data literacy. So having a function that's sort of a data officer to advocate the culture of sharing, advocate a data-driven mindset within the business. As Gianvito mentioned earlier, it's a mindset, and you build that into the culture. In the sort of short run, you can start with high-value opportunities and go from there. And at each step, you are moving towards sort of an integrated ecosystem. Just while you're doing that, you need to be mindful not to start creating new data silos in the process. So data integration involves cross-functions, but there are two critical elements that determine the success of the transformation. One is the enabling, the technological enablers, if you like. And the other is obviously leadership. And that's where the strategy comes in. You may have the best technology, you might have a great strategy and vision, but they're all just ideas. It's the people in the organization that will turn that vision into reality. And it's the leadership's responsibility to make sure that everybody is walking in the same direction, and everybody is walking at an appropriate pace as well. Pace is also important, which Gianvito touched on earlier. Now, it doesn't mean that you've got to plan everything in detail, or that you can just energize the company and wait for great things to happen. You've got to sort of articulate your vision, start the journey with sort of critical initiatives, and then engage your people to build that vision over time. So what technology you invest in is important, but also how you use that technology to transform your business even more important. And one of the key technological enablers that can help you in that journey is a data logistic platform, which I'm going to be biased here, which we provide, which is agile enough to let you construct any business logic that is required within a given process. It's a drag and drop style configuration that allows the business people to actually build what they need, utilizing their full understanding of that business process without relying on IT. A huge number of connectors, hundreds of connectors. That means you can connect almost any system you have within your business. And whether you've got a legacy system on one side, or you have a modern system with a full set of REST APIs, you've got manufacturing machines, processing centers, or you just want to feed your business intelligence tools with fresh transactional data. You can now get them to talk to each other harmoniously without having to change or replace your existing systems. To use Gianvito's analogy, so the dots can be connected. They don't need to be isolated anymore. And Hulft integrated platform can help you on that journey. Just as an example, to give you an idea of sort of a simple or one task integration process where we had a large customer based in the US, they were getting overwhelmed with a large number of documents where they had to be manually imported or manually inserted into their systems. And within a few weeks, we put together a process where that whole process is automated. A PDF is detected, whether it's an attachment on an email or in a specific folder. It then goes through a process of extracting the relevant information. The user still has the option to visually inspect the results and either let it go through automatically into their destination system or keep it for more sort of validation. And that process from being manual is now digitized, and it takes half the time with half the people. On the other scale of the equation, you've got a complete trading platform that's enabled by Hulft Integrate. Where, as I mentioned earlier, no coding, a quick to put together, and also loose coupled integration, which means a change in one system does not impact the other. And a rich set of connectors. And if you've got a legacy system where we don't have a connector, we've got a development kit that allows us to build a dedicated connector. So under the bonnet or behind the scenes of this trading platform, there are 6 different systems talking to each other via Hulft, excuse me, via Hulft Integrate, where Hulft Integrate is acting as the hub, passing messages between the systems, fetching data, sending notifications, and harmonizing all the systems to get them to act as one platform, providing whatever your customer or your supplier is requiring at that point. And at the same time, removing the risk of human errors. So with the flexibility of the platform, regardless of the industry, regardless of the task, that you can connect any system you've got and get them to sort of unleash the value you're holding within those data silos. Just a couple of words about us. Now, Hulft is part of the Cezanne Group, and we're celebrating our 50th anniversary this year. So we've got a very rich heritage with 10,000 customers in 43 different countries, as well as 100% of Japanese banking associations. We also have 100% of the Japanese car manufacturers as our long-standing customers. So with that, I want to thank everybody for organizing this event, and thank you to Gianvito for the enlightening points that he made. Tim, thank you for also making it run smoothly. If anybody has any additional questions, the contact details are on the screen. Please contact me, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. And for any further information about our products and our company, you also have the links here. So thank you again. And at this point, if everything had gone as normal, I would have been saying lunch is served, but unfortunately, I hope somebody has made it for you.
Thank you very much, Irfan. Thank you. And we're bang on 12:30. So thank you very much for your words. Thank you, Hulft, for organising and supporting this session. Gianvito, thank you very much for your fascinating contribution. And on behalf of all of the team here at Make UK, thank you very much for joining us. And I hope you have a good lunch and a good afternoon. Bye-bye.